Welcome back to Teal Town, USA. I am Eric Kura, and again, we're in for another treat. Uh, Back with us is Terry Smith of Terry Smith Creations, uh, Sharks logo uniform creator extraordinaire. Want to bring you back because you sent us some goodies, and let's just say not to be teasing anybody, but there are some goodies in here for sure that probably have not seen the light of day, and we're fortunate that Terry's allowing us to share it with you. First and foremost, tell me about how the beginning of putting together the original Sharks logo. You had mentioned something like in regards of tiger sharks.
Yeah, I mean the I think it was Bay Area Hockey uh, was the name of the organization. They were again for the Sharks. They were trying to figure out what the name would be. So as the names were being tossed around, that was one of the names that had come up in terms of a variation on Sharks. Again, trying to come up with something that nobody else had and was unique, and so that was one of the options at the time.
And it's just unreal to see that what eventually became the shark. So you could see that shark in there, but neon green with teal and black. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. When we talked, I told you before, a lot of times, again, looking at, again, California, surf inspired stuff, skateboarding, that type of stuff. So, we were trying some really different things. As I look at this now, it looks very dated. But, again, as an artist, you're always kind of growing and trying new stuff. But yeah, what we're looking at there was could we find an interesting way to bring more color and more action and more motion into the design? So coming up with something playful with tiger stripes, and how could we use that as a pattern, and what could we do with it? And so that what I sent you there was a kind of an early experiment in saying, hey, what if we kind of went crazy with it?
it was out there. That's for
Oh, it
sure.
was very out there. But
I
remember, when we talked earlier, I told you we had always set out to do something that was different, right? We were
right.
hockey in California, and we knew we needed to make a statement. And how far would we go? That was pretty far.
It was very far. It did get um toned down to what eventually became the Sharks logo. Although, like you said, there was a different one that was leading the way. Was the one on the left of on here, which eventually became the logo for the China Sharks, and more notably, the Sharks minor league affiliate at the time, the Cleveland Barons.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier in the last show when we talked about, again, um, not the decision was made not to go too cartoony. We talked about the old Pittsburgh Penguin crest that had kind of the very kind of cartoony looking penguin before they went with the more contemporary design. And so, one of the things when you do focus groups, and I told you I'm not a huge focus group fan, but when you do focus groups, that was the one that was leading the, their testing. But that's why I said you sometimes, again, when you do a focus group, ask the right questions, listen to what people are saying. Also, look who's in the focus group and all those types of things. So I think, the team made the right direction to go away from that. But it was a design that could be successful if used, with your organization for other things. And that's what they ended up doing.
Yeah, it became, like we mentioned on the last show, the second most popular sports merchandising brand outside, Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. And it's just phenomenal, and it literally started that teal wave going with everybody in pro sports. But like you said, when we were chatting before we started this, things change, things evolve. You're given the opportunity to do the next updated look of the Sharks logo, uh, and I know you wanted to add a little more color to it. What were the other steps that you were taking into uh, altering the look?
Well, the first thing was, how much do you alter the look, right? You don't want to, I didn't want to change it completely. So a lot of times, people would go, okay, we're going to, revamp the logo. So, hey, let's change it. We had something that was working. We had something that fans liked. And so what I worried was more about backlash. If you, come back with something that's really different, that's where I think you could end up with a problem. And so, the goal was to how could we update the look, but stay true to the original. And so that was really my focus. As we talked about before, too, the team also wanted to see, they wanted to see a version of the whole shark, because all you'd seen was half of a shark or portion of a shark cutting through a triangle.
Right.
And so that was another challenge. How do we take something that was very graphic and iconic, and if you extended that image out, it wouldn't look like a shark. Because if you look at the original design, it was a strong kind of graphic meant to represent a shark, but it wasn't an illustration of a shark or an actual shark. It was a really a graphic design. So to try to take that graphic design and turn that into what people would perceive as okay, that's a full shark, we had to kind of try to figure that out.
I think you did pretty good. You did very well on there. But another thing that you on what you sent me was kind of an evolution of sorts, and I love this evolution here. But like I said, I noticed that there were some slight alterations uh, between the two original logos, and then what you sent me, this again evolution of where the current logo is now. What was behind that? Was it just the show what we were at,
Um,
or
this was actually, the way that this was done, we actually we had worked and finally completed, the updated version, which is in the lower corner there with the teal on it. And we went back and we looked at the original version, which is in the upper, the upper left-hand corner there. And one of the challenges we had at the time was, and this slide was created because the Sharks wanted to do a throwback jersey. And so do we go back and do a version of the original jersey, or do we do a cleaned up, more modern, contemporary version of the original jersey? And so what we did was we took the new logo and the old logo, and then we did a series of steps where we said, okay, here's what the old one looked like. What happens if we start to move the fins in the direction of the new one? What happens if we start to move the body shape in the direction of the new one? What happens if we start to move the colors in the direction of the one? So we just took a series of steps, and that's what you see in that. And the idea there was, well, we're going to give you a throwback jersey, but we're going to give you a crest that will look better than the original crest,
right?
And be easier to stitch and sew and all that kind of stuff. Plus, give you something a little unique. It's a combination of old and new. Sadly, that jersey was never made, but that's what that sheet was.
Gotcha. And kind of picking back to the original jersey, how many concepts did you go through before you ended up with the jersey that's on the far left of my screen?
It's like anything that we do when we're working on something. You'll come up with, it's hard to say, but I was gonna say there are probably at least 15 or 30, somewhere in there, different takes. Because at the time we were designing the jersey, we were still designing the crest at the same time. So there were, and we were looking at some of the new stuff. So like when you saw that tiger shark, what we were playing around with there is could that, the tiger stripe or that pattern, would that run around the jersey? Could that replace the stripes on the jersey? That kind of thing. And so when we're playing around with jerseys, there were, wave patterns and stripes. There's a bunch of stuff we tried. And at the end of the day, the reason the jersey kind of ended up the way that it did was I decided, let's stay traditional with the stripes, because we were doing something so different with the crest that have the entire jersey be radically different, I felt that might have been too over the top. Just like when you looked at that tiger shark design, that was too over the top. And I felt that we needed to at least respect traditional or hockey traditionalists by maintaining, and what you see there was a very typical, stripe pattern at that for that time period. That's what a lot of the uniforms look like. So we stayed with that and just tried something different when it came to the crest and the shoulder patches. Even the numbering and lettering were pretty traditional for the time.
Right. It wasn't like New York Islanders fisherman jersey where the waves and the numbers were going with the waves, for sure.
Yeah. So it just, again, the decision, I made a design decision there we're going to be radically different in one area. Let's stay traditional in the other and see if that works.
And the combination was absolutely phenomenal. Again, broke all kinds of merchandise sales and such. But moving forward to the 25th anniversary, this one was one of my favorites. As I told you off the air, just that look of yin and yang, of both sharks coming together and kind of literally coming full circle. I thought that was an excellent piece.
Yeah, well, as you and I talked about, we do literally hundreds of designs. So again, if you pull back on that page, what they'll see is just a small sampling. When we're doing these things, we are doing. I'll come up with, like I said, sometimes we got hundreds of designs that we're trying. So there, what you see is some of the designs from the 20th anniversary, and then some of the ones from the 25th. And what I'd done was made a decision that on the 20th, you could do something fun with the two X's. But on the 25th, you saw I started to try Roman numerals, but didn't feel quite as good as just getting something with the good, with the number 25 in there. But, sometimes, again, when you're playing with things, it's trying to figure out what to do. What you'll also notice on the 25th is we have what we call the leaping shark. But what you're seeing on some of those 25th designs is what I call the swimming shark. And the team's never used that really for anything. There's a couple times where, it might have been used part of it, but that was also one of the things we were originally looking at for patches and stuff, is instead of having a leaping shark, trying a swimming one.
It's just amazing how the tail gets moved around, how it completely changes the look and feel of the logo, which is just a little change changes to everything. So
but that was, to me, that's what became a key element to the design, was that we maintain the crest. That part of the shark does not change.
Mm-hmm.
But coming up with a way where just by how we connect the tail, we can make it feel like it's leaping, we can make it feel like it's swimming. We can just kind of, again, it allows us to maintain consistency with the primary mark, but offer some alternative looks when needed.
Yeah, and there's that extra touch where, like, if you're in that certain, tight form where, the tail on the bottom was too far stretched, you can throw it on top. But I totally get that. I totally get that. As a graphic designer, it's like, okay, that makes sense. You can have multiple options with it. It's perfect.
Yeah, and if you look real closely, there are times where I'll extend the tail, make it even longer, you know, if I need to drop type on it or do something like that and
Right.
make the shark look like it's sleeping over the type. So again, it gives us some options, especially when type is involved.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I see one of the ones where you tried the Roman numeral where it stretches out a little bit more, but it works. It fits and it works, and great work on that part because it just adds to all the little things you can do to it. So when and what was the process of putting the screaming shark putting together?
Again, that came about. So after we had done the redesign, um, uh, I think this was after another ownership group had taken over. They wanted to do something different. And so one of the things that I started to think about was we'd never done anything with the shark's mouth open. We did stuff where you could see the teeth. I'd even tried some things with the shark's mouth closed, which I think you've got some of that I sent you as well.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it was, you know, what do we do? Now, once you open the shark's mouth, it changes the shape of what we had done. And so what became very challenging is, could I create a shark? Could we create a shark with the other artists I was working with that still felt like the San Jose shark, but we had the mouth open in the way that when most people think about sharks from the movies and Jaws, you think about having that big mouth come open and just snap shut. So the trick for us was, could we do that? So in this case, these are some images from another artist friend of mine, Gia Luke. Gia is a very good animator. And I love what he does with kind of characters and action. And then again, the trick here was, could we take our logo and animate it, actually try to bring it to life, but capture a still moment, but still have it feel like our shark. So what you see here is kind of, they're interesting images, but when you look at them, they don't look like the San Jose shark.
Right.
They look like a shark, but it's not the San Jose shark. And so that is the challenge, you know, when you try to do something like this. So really it became, could we do something different with that shark? Could we get that mouth open? Could we make it look fierce and even more aggressive with the mouth open? But could we make it look like the San Jose shark? So these were some early experiments in trying to see what we might be able to do in the direction that we might want to try.
And it eventually became, you went through it and you had originally swooshes or behind a different background. It just
Yeah, so this was a page where what you see is, okay, can we started to, I started, the more I played with it, his kind of initial drawings, I started to go, okay, I need to take what he was doing. I like some of the stuff, but could I turn that into, you know, the San Jose shark? And so that's what you see there, some experiments. Now, some of those that you see, it looks very cartoony, right? And like I said, where, you know, it almost looks like the ones on top, you know, where it starts to look almost more like a snake or a dog, or, you know, but again, the jaws is a little bit lower and all that kind of stuff. Because one of the things is, if you open the mouth, you know, and the one like in the middle on black, I didn't like the head of the shark looking really skinny and really thin. I needed it to be beefy, because that's what the logo looks like. It is a large shark on steroids. And so when you start to angle it, like I said, if the shark is too thin, meaning not enough of the shark's head on above the mouth, then it starts to look too narrow. It looks like a snake or a little eel or something like that. So, but when I try to beef it up at the nose, then it starts to turn into something else. It's not the San Jose shark again. So it became that fine balance of trying to find something where to put the girth so that it still felt like a intimidating, large, aggressive shark, but still, you know, okay, it was still the San Jose shark. And then once you did that, now you've also changed the angle. And so now you have to start looking at, okay, now what do we do with the tail? And so again, I wanted to kind of create a little bit more style to the tail as well on these. So the idea of, the thrasher sharks, which, that, you have, yes, you have the dorsal fin, but their tail fins are also very distinctive. And
Right.
again, looking at sharks that are known, for basically off the California coast. And so these designs started to take that shark with the mouth open and now change the view so that we're looking from slightly underneath it. So you get that feeling of motion that we had in the original design where he's diving through the triangle. So now what I wanted to do is create that feeling that he's getting ready to attack, where sharks will swim off and then they'll turn around and head back. And when you see him starting to turn, that's when you know you're in trouble.
Right.
So could we capture that feeling of, oh boy, it's about to go down? I'm borrowing Kevin Hart there, but it's about to go down.
But you described that, and you mentioned it before, how there's a story behind it. That's how it hits. It just hits right there, because, like you said, it's all of a sudden you see underneath it. Now it's coming around, and like, oh, it's about to go down. Oh shoot!
Well, yeah. When we talked about it, I said, all of my artwork and everything that I do, it's about telling a story. And we talked about this before. And I think that's, when we started last time, I said, that's the difference between, I think, what we do and what a lot of people do, especially in logos, is I want to tell a story. And when you look at it, I want you to be able to make up in your mind when you see it, there's a story behind what's there. And so that those images that you just showed, there's a story there, both with the way the shark is positioned, and then also, I try to do something in the background where there's a story in the background. So you and I talked a little bit about, again, I know, we're in the Silicon Valley, so I've always wanted to try to do something, that paid homage to technology and the Silicon Valley. And so, even though it's not blatant, some of those are more blatant than others, but the idea of, again, being able to subtly put something back there. And the way I envision these working, if they were crest, is they wouldn't stand out as much as you see on that page, but through different threads, different materials, we could create a circuitry pattern that would be very subtle, and it would only show up when the lights hit it just right.
Right.
And to me, that's the perfect type of a design, where it's there, but it's not there, and it's subtle. And these are some designs I really would have liked to have tried on a uniform, because it changes what you see, and especially for fans walking around. Think of it this way. This just hit me. But imagine everyone in the stands is wearing that new design. And the material on the jerseys that we sold at the stadium are essentially like, they're kind of a black light neon. So we have them turn on like some black lights in the stands, and all of a sudden all of the jerseys come to life, right? And so it's just, it's fun to do stuff like that. And you can do that, with a lot of the technology and materials and stuff that exists today. And those are the kind of things that I think are fun and have not been tried yet. Because from a distance, it's going to look like a normal jersey.
Right.
But all of a sudden, hey, the fun can come out, and it's a nice surprise.
It's that Easter eggs, I think,
for you video game players, the
right,
Easter eggs.
Right, the Easter eggs. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't see that right away. Now I get that, and now it makes sense. Like, I know we're gonna jump to the stealth mode in a sec, but it's like the SJ captured into the circuitry of the stealth jersey. It's just that little thing's like, okay, I get what you're going. I see what you did there.
Again, the stories. Let people's imagination have some fun with what you do.
And continuing on here, it's just
So
trying
there you see
different.
Some of Gia's original, some of those concepts he was playing with. I said, okay, if I take that concept, that basic concept, can I turn that into, the San Jose shark? So again, here it's debatable, but at least it moves closer. But it isn't, it comes across as a different shark,
Yeah.
and so that was the thing. And so even the screaming shark, in my mind, still comes across a little bit as a different shark. As much as I tried to stay with the original by opening the mouth and changing the shape, it becomes different. And that's why I had to move away from the old angle. And that's part of the reason I picked this new angle, is because if I tried to do the mouth open from the current angle, I didn't get anything I was happy with that looked like, okay, that's the San Jose shark. But once we change the angle, now you're more willing to go, okay, I get it. That's the San Jose shark, but I'm seeing it from a different angle, but that's the shark. But trying to do it from match the existing angle, I wasn't able to pull it off in a way that I was happy with.
And it's tough to do because it just feels it definitely has a lot more flow to it.
Yeah,
Just
there's more.
circuitry flow.
Yeah, and these, like I said, if we're doing this, it's like, okay, let's create more excitement, let's create more emotion. And these ones are simple. So this is like taking the circuitry pattern out, but again, this is a representative more of San Jose. So it's looking at the San Jose city seal,
Right.
which has the sun in it, but the wavy. And I said, let's do something a little different. Let's put the sun in there, but let's do a new approach to it, and say California and San Jose. So this is more of a San Jose than it is a Silicon Valley thing.
Right. And of course, the state logo that you had going. Now the shark is going in a different direction, but just how you have the state going there with the water, and just how the shark is just about to leap out of California, literally.
Well, again, this one, again, you and I talked a little bit about, when they had the outdoor game, and they had done a California patch that it just used the fin logo kind of in the California, in the silhouette of California. And what I wanted to do, I thought that was an interesting concept, but I wanted to say, how could you push that a little further? And so I said, let's see if we can do something a little more interesting. So the interesting one on this, like I said, okay, let's see if we can kind of bring it to life more, and again, we've got that shark again wrapping around. So let's see if we can make it wrap around the state. And then, let's put the little star in there to indicate where San Jose is, let you know where we are at. So this was, again, one of those experiments for patch. And that's what a lot of these that you're looking at now is we were looking at, okay, how do we create some interesting shoulder patches for the jersey?
And just a unique look, and even just a little, tinge here or there, or just changing the shape in the background. I mean, I know in the official style guide it does have the triangle with the water in it, but to see it in a shield like for the city of San Jose, or to use the state outline is different, or even the line work just a little bit, just changes it up so differently and captures the motion or the nod and feel of Silicon Valley. I think is just a unique touch that it was definitely, again, like we talked about with moving the shark tail to swimming. Uh, it has options to it, and that's always a good thing with the when presenting a brand out there.
Yeah, and like I said before, again, there's hundreds of designs that nobody ever sees. So this is a rare sneak peek into kind of the creative process. We try to come up with designs that are going to work. We never know what they're going to pick. We'll have our favorites and we'll try to influence and say, hey, I would go with this if I were you. At the end of the day, it's their decision. So, there's a lot of designs we've done over the years that I like better. So far we've been fortunate that most of the things they've selected have worked. But there's still some that I look at and go, I think that would work better. But we'll never know. But it's definitely fun, working on these things. And like I said, the challenge is always the same, and that is, can we create something that uh, um, people, and when I say people, most people, because anytime we do these things, there are going to be, some people are going to like them, some people are not. Like I said, I'm not big on social media or things like that, but I will get hate mail whenever we make changes and stuff like that. So you can imagine on some of these, the designs are very different. So if you would come out and replace that traditional shark crest with one of those other, crests that had either the sun or whatever, I'm sure a lot of fans, would go, "What are you doing?" And
Right.
the hate mail would rain down. So sometimes, like I said, when you do these things, you just have to have a thick skin, but you are always trying to come up with stuff that you think from a design standpoint will work.
Yeah, I think any graphic designer who's designed any logo, one, you'll think you're finished, and then you're going to have to make 15 different adaptations to it. But also, the you then it's like, okay, well, what if you do this and this, and you're like, yeah, you're like, no, this one's a lot better. I swear you, this one's a lot better. You're like, no, let's try it. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, that one. You're like, really,
Well,
that one?
what I'll tell you is, logos are personal things, and there's no right answer, and so it's always going to be somebody's opinion.
Right.
And I still have, logos designed by committees are the worst logos of all time, because you have somebody who's trying to please everyone, and you end up with just a mess. You end up with stripes and polka dot and plaid and solid because you're trying to please everybody. And so I think to some extent, what you have to do is trust your gut. You have to fight for the things that you think will work. But the thing you have to do right from the get-go is listen. And when I say listen, sometimes listening means observing. And that is, you have to look and see what people are responding to. What do people like? And you don't necessarily listen to them talk, but you observe them. You watch what they buy. You watch what they respond to. You watch what things are going on in the world around you and in the community. What are people gravitating towards, and what are they responding to? What are they comfortable with? And that's really what you do. You observe, and then you try to take your observations and put them into the philosophy behind the concept of the design. Because if you ask people what they like, most of the times when it comes to art, they can't tell you. When you put stuff in front of them, they can tell you whether they like it or not, but most of the times they can't tell you why. And so instead of being embarrassed about not being able to tell you why, they'll make something up. So that's when you have to be a good listener to decide when is it that they just don't like it, but they don't know why. And then you have to ask questions to figure out what is it that is, what are they responding to in a negative way? And then what are they responding to in a positive way? And this has to do everything from color to the concept to the composition. And so I think if I've been able to do anything over the years is being able to listen and observe, and then being able to interpret what I see and what I hear.
In just go with what you've learned and you observe, and to literally use your words here, to see what works out best.
Yeah, and again, like I said, a lot of times, like I said, you can't, when it comes to things like this, like I said, logos are personal to everybody. And a logo, when you finish it, when somebody looks at it, it is a personal thing to them, whether they like it or not.
Right.
And so what you have to try to do is find in your design a common denominator that most people will respond to in one way or another. And so like when we first talked about the shark, what's the common denominator that most people will respond to in a shark? And we talked about it, a dorsal fin and teeth.
Right.
So you know that your initial design needs to encompass those things. And so now, what else can you do? Well, how do you give it attitude? And that's where the eye comes in. And that's why on the redesign, I wanted to give it more attitude. So we made the eye more visible by adding color. I also wanted to make it more aggressive. And so with a shark, to be more aggressive, like we talked about, I'm not afraid of a skinny eel, but I am afraid of a beefy shark. And so how do we beef it up? Right. So these are the kinds of things, like I said, that you start thinking about and talking about and figuring out, okay, how am I going to translate that, that philosophical concept into a visual presentation?
That being said, when going into making stealth, and I mean the stealth logo, the stealth mode, the stealth jersey, how did you take it from, I guess, from that dark perspective where it's supposed to be, mysterious, it's supposed to be inward coming, and how it's supposed to just catch you when you're not expecting it what's the word I'm looking for, just catch you when you're caught sleeping, essentially.
Well, the concept that I had behind that was we needed an alternative jersey, and they wanted to do a new black jersey. And so right away, what I'm thinking about is, okay, philosophical, again, starts with the story. All right, what do I want to do with this? What do we want to say? And so for me, the whole concept behind the stealth jersey and the way I presented it to them was, when you think about sharks, and you think about what's the scariest proposition about sharks, is what happens if you get a swarm of sharks. And so what I wanted to do was create the feeling that when you came into the Shark Tank, that the players represented a swarm of sharks. And that meant, in my perfect world, no names on the jerseys. They're all black. You can't tell one player from the next. You don't know which one's going to attack. You don't know which one's most dangerous. So you're afraid of all of them. And so the concept was, could I create a sense when the players came out on the ice that all you saw was all black jerseys? It was just all black. And the only way that you saw anything on the jerseys, numbers, any of that stuff, was by taking the teal and adding another shade of teal that was brighter, that I was using as an outline. Mm-hmm. And that's what you would have seen around numbers. That's what you would have seen around the logo itself, like in the upper left-hand corner. The only thing you would have seen on the jersey, everything would have been black, and you would have seen just the outline of the shark, and you just would have saw that one kind of blue patch on the top of the head, and you would have saw the teeth and the eye. All the rest of it's gone. And so that was really my motivation and my concept and my story behind the initial designs. And then what I added on those designs was the circuitry pattern in the numbers and letters, because they were just outlined as well. And then as the players moved, you see the circuit shimmer in the numbers, and you'd see the circuitry shimmering in the stripes. So just like if you saw sharks underwater, you see the shadow coming at you, and then maybe you see a shimmer, if the light happens to penetrate through the water and you see this thing coming at, but you just get little pieces and glimpses of it. So really, that was the idea, an underwater shark attack where they're coming at you from all directions and you're just getting little bits and pieces of them and glimpses of them. Obviously, I can tell you why they went away from it. It's because it doesn't work on TV.
Right.
But it would, conceptually it works on the rink and it works everywhere else. I'm sure besides television, the referees would have hated it because hard to identify who that penalty was on. But conceptually, it was a cool idea, and I was hoping that we could have gone with it.
Hey, if you can't figure out who the high sticking penalty was, how are you going to call it? It could have been on Jumbo. It could have been on Burnsy. I mean, I don't know. They had a beard, you know,
Yeah,
but
it's a fun thought.
it's. I really wanted to have you back on because just to see the description of going from that tiger shark to stealth, how how the designs have changed, how you take that story and it evolves, and it all goes back to you. And I can't, and I think I speak for many people and many designers uh after they saw this first video, is that you really changed the game with the graphic design and the brand recognition of I think not just in sports logos, but how branding's done now, how it's all changed, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for being the person that steps out of the box and just creates it, but it has more meaning to it.
I thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, it's I think whenever you're doing anything creative, whether you're an actor, a musician, writer, you kind of search for your own style. I think whenever people start doing things, they usually start through imitation. If you're a musician, you learn how to play, music or guitar like an artist you like, or you copy songs or things like that. But ultimately, to grow creatively, you have to find your own niche, your own groove, your own philosophy behind, what drives you creatively. And so that's, been the journey. And as an artist, I'm still on that journey. And I think anybody creative is always on that journey. Once you stop feeling like you learned something, then you stop growing as an artist, you stop growing as a person. So, the Sharks have allowed me to, all of the work we've done for them over the years has allowed me to kind of grow as an artist. That's why I'm saying sometimes looking back at like that tiger shark thing can be painful. Like I said, that's why I use the word dated. But it does, you can see how the evolution of the art, evolution of the design, and hopefully you become a better storyteller. And as you become a better storyteller, hopefully that shows in your work.
Definitely, and it showed in your work throughout the years, uh, creating the look of the Sharks. So Terry Smith, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.